Want to get into toy photography and you have no idea where to start? Well, you might be in the right place. So as you've seen on this channel, I sometimes do speed art videos with Transformer Generation 1 scenes. It's a little bit more involved, a little bit more Photoshop, some trickery, stuff like that. But recently I started doing photos, just plain old photos, on a page called the Reflector files. No tricks, no Photoshop effects outside of just a little bit of color correction. What you see is what you get. I've had a couple people ask me about it, so I figure I would give all you guys a little tour of the Reflector File Studios. Before we get to all that though, I just want to take care of a little bit of business. I'm on a bi-weekly podcast called Blackout Shout. That link is in the description. I also have a website where I sell t-shirts and prints and other goodies. That's dragonstarsshop.com. That link's also in the description. The Reflector Files, my toy photography page, can be found on Facebook and Instagram. Those links are in the description as well. Let me throw a disclaimer out there. I'm not a professional photographer. I mean, I've gotten paid sometimes for it, so maybe semi-professional at best, but basically this is just a guideline. My way of doing things isn't the only way of doing things. I'm just going to show you what I do, and then maybe you can take what I do and incorporate it into your own style. There's an infinite number of ways to get to the same destination. Like 14,605,000. The most important thing that I'm going to stress to you on this video is that you don't need a ton of money to do this. I mean, of course, better equipment is going to yield better results, but you don't need top of the line gear just to get started. I'll show you my camera first. It's a Canon 7D. It does the trick. Before that, I had a Canon 300D. Any DSLR is good enough to get you started, and some of them are very affordable. Maybe I'll do a little DSLR for Dummies tutorial soon just to cover basic settings on the camera. Let's go check the spot out, and we will enlist the help of our friend Megatron. So here is my little photo studio that I use for the Reflector files and for some of those Photoshops that I do. Now first I'm going to take you through a quick little walkthrough, and then I'll talk over some of the equipment and props and stuff that I use. But as you can see, it's just it's a room in my basement. It's in the furnace room. I have very little room to work with. I basically use one wall to do what I do, so it really doesn't take up a whole heck of a lot of space. So over off to the side here I have a little tabletop worth of accessories that I use, props basically, all pretty much simple stuff. These black pieces, those black pieces, and these are from shelves that I used to have in the collection room. Some of them are cut down the long way. These are just cut down to short pieces here. I have a couple of Detolf shelves from an old busted Detolf that somebody gave me, but I always kind of save some stuff because you never know really when you're going to need it. And these are glass shelves that actually came in the case that I got, and we'll go over that in a second. And this is some clear fishing line. I will show you where that's useful in just a bit. So the display case that I use is about 2 feet deep, 6 feet long, and about 3 feet high. I picked it up from a store that was closing. You can find these really cheap. You just got to keep your eyes open. A lot of times stores go out of business, and they're trying to dump off a lot of this stuff really cheap. I got very lucky with it. I think I paid $50 to $75 for it, and it's really nice. It came with the shelves and all that stuff, which is what I showed you over here on that table. But of course I take them out, you know, so I could use it for photography purposes. For a background, I have a spray painted piece of polystyrene. A lot of people were asking how I get the cool, cloudy, blotchy kind of effect in the background, and truth be told, I didn't even do it on purpose. It's just kind of how it happens. Instead of using a regular photo background, I got a piece of polystyrene and I spray painted the whole thing black, and as you can see, some of the texture, as I get a little bit closer, shows up in some of the photos, and it is a very cool effect and wasn't on purpose. And this kind of stuff happens in art and music and a lot of different things, a lot of creative outlets. Sometimes your mistakes are the winners. I shouldn't really call it a mistake as much as just something that happens by accident, like a happy accident, pretty much. You know, like Bob Ross would have said. You know, it happened in the recording studio a lot. Sometimes you play something a little bit different than you thought you were going to play it, and as it turns out, that's probably cooler than the original way anyway. So this was just one of those things that happened, and as I saw the effect that came through on the photos, I decided to keep it rather than go into a regular traditional photo background. So yeah, it's just a thin piece of polystyrene. You see right there. It's white on one side, spray painted black on the other. So this prop that you see at the back of all the Reflector file photos is a stand that came with Toy World's version of Thrust. Can't remember what he was called, Attack, I think. And it's the only Seeker that I own from that company, so this was the only piece of wall that I got. And I know you could get more of it, and I was thinking about it and building up a giant wall back there, but then my photos were just going to look like every other photo that you've seen with that particular background, and that was something that I really wanted to avoid. Now, the reason I avoided using an entire wall and just sticking to one is because I wanted to find a way to make my photos unique. And one piece going across the back is a way of doing that, even though it seems so simple, but that is unique from anything else that you've seen on these photos. And so is the cloudy spray painted styrene background as well. That was another reason why I didn't build an entire wall up, is because people already kind of latched onto that as being a unique aspect of my photo, so I didn't want to go covering it up. It doesn't always take something groundbreaking to make your photos unique or to make them stand out from the rest of the pack. Sometimes it's just a little something that makes them different. In my case, there's a couple little things, but the one piece of Toy World and Seeker background that I have behind everything is kind of one of those things. So admittedly, my setup is somewhat unorthodox, which is perfect, because if it's not unorthodox, that means you're doing the same damn thing that a million other photographers are doing out there, and that's something that you just want to avoid, in my opinion, because I do think that you know, you want to find a way to make yourself stand out. So these are the lights that I use. Very simple light stand, light bulbs. Got the diffuser umbrellas that I use on at least these two on the sides. Pretty simple. You can get them just about anywhere. I got mine on eBay. And then I have a second set inside the case, and those lights shining up through the glass is how I get that cool effect of the underlit figures. I think that's kind of unique too, because I think a lot of people really tend to take their photographs on a solid surface, and I have mine on glass, so I kind of like the way that the figures look when they're lit from the bottom. I do keep the camera on a tripod. I don't do too many of my shots handheld. The reason for that has more to do with the settings of the camera, the shutter speed, aperture settings, and ISO. I'm not really going to get into that in this video. I may get into it in the future. But for the time being, I'll just say that the tripod's pretty important. It's not a really crazy extravagant tripod either, a pretty simple one. I also have the option of taking the side lights and putting them on the table. I'm a little cramped for space because of headroom I got here, so I do have to take the umbrellas off, but I can put the lights on the tabletop itself, and then that way I can kind of get a figure that's pretty well top lit. So that gives me a little bit more of an option. So now I'm just going to take a couple photos and show you a couple of the different lighting options I use. First pick is going to be with both side lights on and both bottom lights on. Next pick is just going to be with only the side lights. Next pick is only going to be with the bottom lights. Next pick is going to be with top lights and bottom lights. Next pick, top lights only. As for all the shelves that I have over here, I mentioned them a little bit earlier. There's a lot of different things that you can do with the shelves as well, the clear ones and the black ones. So I'm going to show you a couple of those examples right now. So besides the props that I already showed you, something else that makes appearances in the photos from time to time are these clear acrylic risers. I found mine on eBay. They were very cheap. I got them in 10 packs. I think you can get them in even bigger packs than that if you want. They come in all different sizes. These are 2-inch ones. These are 5-inch ones. I do have 4-inch ones. I don't have them right here at this second, but they're very useful for photos, and I also use them for my collection too. They're very helpful in putting that back row a little higher, so everybody's not standing on the same plane. So when I first showed you the table of props and extra accessories that I use for these, this fishing line made an appearance. I'm about to show you what that's for. So that's what that's for. I basically use it for jumping, flying, that type of stuff. I use those more when I'm working on the Photoshop type of stuff, but I'm going to start using them on the Reflector files a little bit more. For Megatron will be a really great example. 6-shot, since he's kind of a ninja. You know, I mean, anybody could be jumping, but I think it's a really cool effect, and it's a practical effect, and anybody can pull it off. You don't necessarily need Photoshop skills unless you want to get rid of the little bit of fishing line that actually shows up in the photo, but as you can see here on the shot, it's really not too bad. One tip for shooting a figure suspended by line, you want to make sure that it comes to a complete stop before you snap your pic, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a little bit of blur. One thing that I really want to stress to any aspiring photographers that are out there that happen to be watching this video, you don't always need top of the line gear to get done what you're trying to get done. You don't have to do everything by the book. You don't have to use quote-unquote photography stuff to do photography stuff. Case in point, some of the stuff I'm using as props, just stuff I find laying around the house. And it really doesn't have to be an expensive endeavor. And just to prove my point, I'm going to add up a couple things. First of all, the display case. I think it was $75, might have even been $50, but we'll go on the high end and say 75 bucks. The tripod for the camera. That was around $30. You could probably find one used for a little bit less on eBay. A set of 2 light stands. I found them on eBay, shipped for $27. You can still find those same sets on eBay today. So for a pair of them, so it would be 4 lights, would be $54. A 4x8 sheet of polystyrene, 25 bucks. Shipped, as a matter of fact. So that isn't very expensive at all. And how much is a can of spray paint? I didn't bother looking that up, but I know it's just a couple of dollars. So if I say the spray paint is $6, that puts us at an even $190 for all this stuff that you see sitting in front of you for these pictures. Just to put that in perspective, that guy cost $230. But before you can say, oh, what about the digital camera? I know they're expensive. There are expensive digital cameras out there. I do agree. But you can get very affordable ones as well. And just to prove a point, I'm going to snap one last picture with my cell phone. Alright, well, that just about wraps up this little look at the Reflector files. If you're a toy photographer and you're out there watching this, I would love to hear a little bit about your setup. Leave me a comment. If you guys have any questions at all, leave me a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. It sounded an awful lot like a voicemail. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you subscribe, don't forget to click the little bell so you get notifications every time I upload something. If you don't like what you saw, F you, Rick Roberts. More to come.